Hello, my lovelies. It's Miss Simpson, and it's time for reading today. So, I want you to think back to writing our essays. When we write our essays, we have something that is ACE. Do you remember what we have to have in our introduction paragraph that tells the reader what the essay is going to be about? I hope that you said your central idea statement. Yes, you have your attention getter, your central idea statement, and your examples. Poems have central ideas too, but sometimes they're not as clear as our essays or even sometimes our books. They are a little bit more tricky. Poems are always going to be trickier. So let's review what central idea actually is before we dive into finding the central idea of a poem. So, a central idea is what the text is mostly about. So if you're reading a paragraph and it tells you how cars run and how cars drive on the road and where cars are going and their engine and their lights, you're probably reading a passage about cars. The central idea is cars. If you're reading a book and it gives you several facts about frogs and their the way that they look, the things that they do, their different features, it's probably, the central idea is probably frogs. So when you're reading, you're trying to think, what is this text mostly talking about? So when we do that, we look for text clues like headings, visuals, the first or the last sentence, and repeated words. So like in our essay, our first sentence isn't our central idea, but our second is. Most of the time, you can get a central idea from the first few sentences. Poems are a little bit more tricky. You do have to read the whole thing in poems. But again, it's typically repeated or it's the first or last sentence. So when we think of central idea, we think of it as the tabletop. So it's the main thing, the biggest part of that table or that passage. And then that passage gives us details that hold up the central idea, like our table legs. So let's say, again, that same passage about cars. So we say our central idea is the way a car works. So it talks about the engine, it talks about the blinkers, it talks about the windshield wipers, and it talks about the wheels. Those would be details that we get that support our idea of, oh, it is the way a car works. Now remember, central ideas are written in sentence form. They're not written in just cars, trucks. They're written in a sentence. So the way that a car works or how a frog jumps, they're written in sentences. So we have to evaluate these details to determine those key ideas that support the central idea. So these are like examples, facts, evidence, and description. So today we are going to read a poem and we are going to do a bubble map over that poem. Now, I like to use bubble maps because I'm horrible at drawing tables. A bubble map is the same thing as our table concept. So let me draw the bubble map real quick. So our middle would be our central idea, and the outside are our details. So this is supported by these details. Same thing as the table. I just can't draw a table, and I'm horrible at it. It just looks like something splat out. So I like to use a bubble map. So we're going to read a poem today, and it is called White Noise. It is called White Noise. As we are reading, I want you to think, what is the main thing this poem talks about, and how do you know? In a world that's not, I can't read today. Let me take a breath. Let me start over. In all the world, there's nothing like the sound of falling snow. The only noise I've ever known that makes the clocks move slow. The only sound that sweeps away the din of city streets and wraps around in soft embrace most everyone it meets. A sound that's not a sound at all, a quiet, soft, and dear that comforts all the sleepy souls who sit and watch and hear. So one thing I noticed that it talks about a lot is snow. And it talks a lot about the sound of snow. But what about the sound of snow? Let's read it one more time. And as I'm reading, I want you to think, what about the sound of snow? What is it talking about? What does it say about the sound of snow? In all the world, there's nothing like the sound of falling snow. The only noise I've ever known that makes the clocks move slow. The only sound that sweeps away the din of city streets and wraps around in soft embrace most everyone it meets. A sound that's not a sound at all, a quiet, soft, and dear, that comforts all the sleepy souls who sit and watch of here and here. So the whole time I'm thinking, okay, yes, it's the sound of snow, but Miss Simpson says a central idea has to be put into a sentence. So if I were to put it into a sentence, I would say the sound of snow is a very special thing. And I got that central idea just from reading the poem and how cool and special it sounded to me, the way that they made it sound. So when they said, in all the world, there's nothing like the sound of falling snow, I'm going to use that. That makes it seem so special. So in all the world, this is the only thing that makes you feel like this, the sound of falling snow. That makes it special. So I'm going to just put in all the world, there's nothing like the sound of falling snow. And I copied that directly from the poem. Word for word, it's the whole first stanza. Okay, let's keep reading and let's find another detail that supports that the sound of snow is special. The only noise I've never known that makes the clocks move slow. So I'm going to say makes the clocks move slow. That's one way that they're saying that snow is special. The only sound, very special, it's the only thing, the only sound that sweeps away the din of city streets. So I'm going to say sweeps away the din of city streets, sweeps away the din of city streets. That's another example. Now let's see something else. And wraps around in soft embrace most everyone it meets. I think I'm going to keep going. I like that, but I want to find another one. A sound that's not a sound at all, a quiet, soft, and dear, that comforts all the sleepy souls who sit and watch and hear. And I'm going to say that comforts all. Notice this part right here, I came up out of my noggin. So this came from my head. I had to think about it. These came from the poem, directly word for word from the poem. So your central idea in the middle is going to be the hardest thing for you to figure out. You're thinking from your head, okay, after I read all of that, what is it mainly about? And then in the poem, you're going to find 4 details that support that central idea. So today, you're going to do the same exact thing I just did with white noise, but you're going to do it with this poem right here. So not only are you going to read the poem, you're going to answer the 3 questions that go along with it. So when it says stop, you're going to name an element used in this poem. So an element. So is there rhyming? Is there repetition? Is there similes, metaphor, personification? And then I want you to underline the text evidence. So if something is repeating itself, hint, hint, underline the repetition. Then you're going to stop here and tell me what time of year is it and use text evidence. Text evidence means how do you know? Well, it's spring because they're all wearing dresses. It's summer because they're all wearing shorts and it's hot outside. It's winter because they're dressed warm. It's fall because they're eating pumpkin pie. Whatever it is. Then when you get to the end, what do you think is the most important line in the poem? Why? I'm going to give you a hint. If something is repeated 15 million times, it's probably the most important line in the poem. Then when you finish that, you're going to do a bubble map, and this is the second page on your PDF down below. You're going to tell me the central idea and 4 details that support it. Your central idea, forget the topic part, I don't care about that. But your central idea has to be a sentence. So maybe it's about wearing dresses in the summer. And then you say they wear dresses in the summer because it's hot, it's toasty, it's comfortable, and whatever else. Maybe there's something about winter in this poem. So check that out and write the central idea and 4 details that support it. All right, guys, I love y'all so much. I hope you have a great day. And when you finish this, just take a picture or use the PDF little arrow coming out of the box right up above and turn it in.